Commander Elias Kane had learned many things about the galaxy, but the most important lesson was simple. People were afraid of what they did not understand. Humanity had entered the interstellar community only 40 years ago. In that short time, humans had earned many names. Some called them brave, some called them reckless, others called them emotional and unpredictable. But one word followed them everywhere: different. Elias did not mind being different. His ship, the Horizon Wake, moved slowly through the outer trade lanes near the blue dwarf star Vierx 9. The light from that star was soft and cool, painting everything in shades of silver and pale blue. Elias stood at the front observation window, hands behind his back, watching the distant lights of a rotating trade station grow larger. The station was called Luma Exchange. It was a neutral place where dozens of species met to trade goods, settle disputes, and share information. It was also a place where quiet tensions often lived beneath polite smiles. Elias had been sent there as a mediator. Two minor trade guilds were arguing over mineral rights from a nearby asteroid field. For most species, this would have been settled through strict rules and contracts. But misunderstandings had grown into personal insults. That was where humans were often called in. Humans had a strange talent for reading emotions and building trust where logic alone failed. As the Horizon Wake docked, Elias adjusted his uniform jacket and stepped into the busy docking corridor. The air smelled faintly metallic, mixed with unfamiliar scents from visiting ships. Voices echoed in different languages, translated through small devices worn on wrists and collars. Many eyes turned toward him. Humans were still rare in this sector. Some aliens stared openly. Others whispered quietly. Elias ignored it, moving forward with calm confidence. He had grown used to attention. After completing formal greetings with the station officials, Elias walked toward the central observation deck. The mediation meeting would not begin for another hour. He preferred to observe first. Watching how beings behaved when they thought no one important was looking often revealed more than official reports. The observation deck curved around the station's outer hull, offering a breathtaking view of the star and passing cargo ships. Light shimmered across transparent panels, creating soft reflections. That was when he noticed her. She sat alone near the far edge of the deck, partially hidden behind a structural column. Layers of light fabric wrapped around her form, covering her shoulders, arms, and most of her face. Only part of her profile was visible, and even that was turned away from the crowd. Several passing merchants gave her a wide berth. Two paused nearby, speaking in low tones. "Why does her kind even come here?" one muttered. "They make customers uncomfortable," the other replied quietly. Elias felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He had heard similar words directed at humans in the early years: too expressive, too intense, too strange. The woman's posture shifted slightly as if she had heard them. Her shoulders lowered further. She made herself smaller. Elias did not approach immediately. Instead, he watched carefully. She was not dangerous. Her body language spoke of caution, not aggression. Her hands rested folded in her lap, fingers long and delicate. The fabric covering her skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the blue star outside. Finally, he walked toward her at a slow, unthreatening pace. She sensed him before he spoke. Her head turned slightly, then quickly looked down again. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Elias said in a calm voice. "The view is better from this side." There was a pause, then a soft reply came from beneath the fabric. "You may sit. I will not disturb you." Her voice was gentle but careful, as if she expected rejection at any moment. Elias sat beside her, leaving respectful space between them. For a few moments, neither spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable, just cautious. After a while, he noticed faint color patterns shifting beneath the thin layers covering her face. Subtle waves of light moved across her skin. He had studied many species' files. Slowly, he realized she belonged to the Illyrians, a race known for bioluminescent skin that changed color with emotion. Unfortunately, many species misread those changes as signs of instability or threat. "I've never seen an Illyrian this far from the inner belt," Elias said gently. Her shoulders stiffened. "You recognize my kind?" "I try to learn before traveling," he replied. "Your people communicate emotion through light patterns. It's beautiful." She went very still. After a long pause, she spoke in a barely audible whisper. "I am not beautiful like human women. You should not look too long." The words were soft, but they carried years of hurt. Elias turned slightly toward her. "Why would you think that?" She hesitated, then slowly pulled back part of the fabric covering her face. Her features were unlike any human's. Her eyes were large and asymmetrical, one slightly higher than the other. Fine ridges traced along her cheekbones. Her skin shimmered faintly with pale violet and silver tones, light moving across it like gentle waves. It was different. It was also striking. Elias did stare, but not because he was shocked. He stared because he was fascinated. The shifting colors were subtle, almost like breathing light. "You see," she said quietly, "it is unpleasant for most species." He shook his head slowly. "No, it's honest." She blinked in confusion. "Human expressions are often hidden," he explained. "We smile when we are nervous. We hide anger behind calm faces, but you cannot hide how you feel. That kind of openness is rare." The light along her cheek flickered uncertainly. "My name is Lyra," she said after a moment. "Elias." She studied him carefully, as if expecting mockery. When none came, her posture relaxed slightly. They spoke quietly about simple things at first: the star outside, the station traffic. She revealed that she worked as a freelance translator for several minor trade groups. Her species had exceptional neural processing abilities, making them skilled in language interpretation. "But most prefer I remain unseen," she admitted. "They request remote translation. Because of how you look." "Yes." There was no anger in her voice, only resignation. Before Elias could respond, the station lights flickered. A low alarm tone vibrated through the deck. Several beings looked around in confusion. The blue glow outside shifted as one of the station's rotational stabilizers malfunctioned. The deck trembled. Cargo containers in a nearby corridor shifted dangerously. Lyra stood instantly. The light across her skin brightened with focused patterns. "The rotation imbalance is affecting docking ring C," she said quickly. "If the pressure seals fail, the cargo sector will decompress." Elias was surprised by the speed of her assessment. "How do you know?" "I helped translate the station maintenance protocols last cycle." Without waiting for permission, Lyra moved toward a nearby console. Her long fingers danced across the controls with practiced precision. She communicated rapidly with engineering teams in multiple languages, relaying instructions faster than automated systems could process. Elias watched with growing admiration. This was not a fragile woman hiding from the world. This was someone highly capable who had simply been pushed into shadows. Within minutes, the stabilizer imbalance was corrected. The alarms ceased. The deck settled. Several nearby merchants stared at Lyra in astonishment. "You prevented a chain reaction failure," one said slowly. She lowered her gaze again, the light on her skin dimming. "It was a minor correction," she replied softly, but Elias saw the truth. Without her, the situation could have escalated quickly. As the crowd dispersed, he turned toward her. "You handled that with remarkable skill," she shrugged lightly. "It is easier to speak through systems than through faces." The comment lingered in his mind. An announcement called him to the mediation chamber. He hesitated. "I have a meeting," he said. "Would you join me?" Her eyes widened. "As what?" "As someone who understands more than most." She looked uncertain. "They will not wish to see me." "They might wish to listen," Elias replied. After a long pause, she nodded. In the chamber, two trade guild leaders argued loudly across a circular table. Representatives from 3 other species observed silently. The tension was thick. Elias began the session calmly, allowing each side to speak. The argument revolved around mineral extraction boundaries, but beneath the surface were personal insults and distrust. As expected, communication broke down quickly. That was when Elias gestured toward Lyra. "She has been assisting the station with translation work," he said. "She may clarify certain contractual phrases." Several representatives glanced at her with visible discomfort. One shifted in his seat. Lyra noticed. Elias saw the faint shimmer of anxiety across her skin, but she did not retreat. She stepped forward and began explaining subtle translation errors that had altered the meaning of key clauses. Her voice was steady. Her explanation was precise. As she spoke, the shifting colors along her skin mirrored her emotions: calm focus, slight concern, measured patience. The room grew quieter. Within 30 minutes, what had seemed like intentional deception was revealed to be layered misunderstanding. The guild leaders exchanged uncertain glances. "You are saying the phrasing implied shared rights?" one asked. "Yes," Lyra replied gently. "Your language structure differs. The nuance was lost." Slowly, tension eased. By the time the meeting ended, an agreement had been drafted that satisfied both sides. As the representatives left, one paused before Lyra. "Your assistance was valuable," he admitted. It was not an apology, but it was something. When the chamber emptied, Lyra turned toward Elias. "You did not need to involve me," she said. "I did," he replied simply. "They needed you." She looked at him carefully, as if trying to understand his motive. "Why do humans do that?" she asked. "Interfere on behalf of others." Elias considered the question. "Because we know what it feels like to stand alone," he said quietly. "When we first joined the council, many saw us as primitive, emotional, weak. If a few species had not looked past that, we would not be here now." Lyra absorbed his words slowly. "I have spent years avoiding attention," she admitted. "It is safer." "Safer, yes," Elias agreed, "but not always better." They returned to the observation deck after the meeting. The blue star shimmered outside, calm once more. Lyra stood beside him without hiding her face this time. The fabric remained around her shoulders, but her features were visible. "You looked at me earlier," she said softly, "not with disgust." "Why?" Elias met her gaze. "Because beauty is not a single shape," he answered. "It's the way someone carries their mind and heart." The faintest glow of warm color spread across her skin, something softer than before. For the first time since he had met her, she did not lower her eyes. And as the blue light from the distant star reflected across her luminous skin, Elias realized that the galaxy had almost convinced her she was invisible. But he could not stop staring, not because she was strange, but because she was extraordinary. And he had a feeling their paths were only beginning to intertwine. Elias did not expect Lyra to accept his invitation so easily. Yet when the Horizon Wake prepared to depart from Luma Exchange, she stood quietly near the docking ramp, her layered garments moving softly with the artificial breeze of the hangar. She carried only a small case, light enough to suggest she owned very little. The blue glow of the station reflected across her skin, faint waves of color shifting with emotion. She watched the surrounding traffic carefully, as if expecting someone to stop her or tell her she did not belong. Elias approached with a calm smile. "You still have time to change your mind." "I have changed my mind many times," she replied softly. "But I have never changed my path." He nodded, understanding more than she realized. The Horizon Wake was not a large ship, but it carried a quiet warmth that many visitors noticed immediately. Humans tended to personalize their environments. Small plants grew in suspended containers along the corridor. Artwork from multiple worlds decorated the walls. Soft music played faintly from unseen speakers. Lyra paused just inside the entrance, looking around with visible curiosity. "You live here?" she asked. "For now," Elias said, "humans like moving." "That seems exhausting," he laughed lightly. "Sometimes it is, but it also means we see new stories." She followed him through the main corridor. Several crew members greeted Elias warmly, their expressions open and relaxed. When they noticed Lyra, some looked curious, but none reacted with discomfort. One engineer offered a small wave. "New guest?" she asked cheerfully. "Yes," Elias said. "This is Lyra. She's joining us for the next assignment." The engineer smiled at Lyra. "Welcome aboard." The simplicity of the greeting seemed to surprise her. She nodded carefully, unsure how to respond. As they continued walking, Elias noticed the colors along her skin shifting toward warmer tones. He suspected she felt uncertain but hopeful. He showed her a small guest cabin near the observation deck. The room was simple but comfortable, with a wide viewing window facing the stars. "You can adjust the lighting if you prefer," he said. "I wasn't sure what suits your species." "This is more than enough," she replied quietly. When he left her alone, she stood near the window for a long time, watching the stars drift slowly as the ship undocked. For the first time in years, she felt she was moving toward something unknown rather than running away. The Horizon Wake entered hyperspace shortly afterward. The stars stretched into lines of light before fading into a shimmering tunnel. Later, Lyra wandered into the main lounge area. Two crew members sat at a table playing a strategy game. They looked up and offered friendly nods without staring too long. She noticed how naturally they accepted her presence. Humans, she realized, did not pretend not to notice differences. They simply did not treat those differences as barriers. Elias joined her with 2 cups of warm tea. He handed one to her carefully. "I checked the station database," he said. "It should be safe for your physiology." She accepted it, studying the steam rising from the cup. You prepare even small details. It helps people feel welcome. She looked at him thoughtfully. You believe that is enough? Not always, he admitted, but it's a good start. Their first destination was a frontier colony called Haven's Reach, a small settlement where humans and several alien species lived together. The colony had requested mediation after increasing tensions between local miners and a group of off-world traders. As the ship approached, Lyra felt nervous energy building inside her. She had avoided direct involvement in public negotiations for years. I may not be useful, she said quietly as they prepared to land. Elias glanced at her. You were essential at the station. That was different. I worked through systems, not faces. He paused before answering. You don't have to become someone else, just be who you already are. She did not respond, but his words lingered. Haven's Reach spread across a rocky valley beneath a pale sky. Buildings were constructed from a mixture of human architecture and alien designs, creating a patchwork of cultures. As they entered the main settlement hall, conversation slowed. A few people stared openly at Lyra's appearance. She felt the familiar urge to hide, but Elias walked beside her calmly, giving silent reassurance. The meeting began with raised voices. The miners accused the traders of exploiting loopholes in supply contracts, while the traders claimed they were simply following agreed terms. Miscommunication had grown into mistrust. Elias allowed both sides to speak, listening carefully. Lyra remained at the edge of the room, observing. As the discussion intensified, she noticed subtle linguistic patterns that others missed. Certain phrases carried emotional meaning beyond literal translation. Small misunderstandings had created larger conflicts. She hesitated, unsure whether to speak. Elias glanced toward her briefly, offering an encouraging nod. Taking a slow breath, she stepped forward. If I may, she said softly. Several heads turned. A few expressions revealed discomfort, but she continued. The conflict arises from contextual differences in your language structures, she explained. The miners interpret ownership as permanent. The traders interpret it as rotational access. She displayed translated phrases on a nearby screen, highlighting how each side misunderstood the other. As she spoke, her skin shifted through gentle waves of color, reflecting concentration and calm authority. The room grew quiet. One miner leaned forward. Are you saying neither side intended deception? Yes, she replied. Slowly, the tension eased. Discussion shifted from accusation to clarification. Within an hour, a revised agreement formed. After the meeting, several colonists approached Lyra to thank her. She responded politely but remained slightly overwhelmed by attention. Outside, she turned to Elias. They listened. Of course they did, he said. You gave them something valuable. She watched people walking through the settlement, interacting freely despite their differences. Something inside her shifted. Humans see differently, she said. Sometimes, he replied. Not always, but we try. That evening, the colony hosted a small gathering in their honor. Music played softly and various species shared food and stories. Lyra remained near the edge at first, observing quietly. A young human child approached her without hesitation. Your skin looks like stars, the child said with awe. Lyra froze, unsure how to respond. Thank you, she said finally. The child smiled brightly and ran back to their parents. Elias watched from a distance, noticing the way Lyra's posture changed slightly, less guarded, more open. Later, as they stood beneath the fading light of the colony's sky, she spoke again. When I first saw you, I warned you not to look at me, she said. I remember. Now I wonder if I feared being seen more than being judged. Elias nodded slowly. Being seen can be frightening. It means someone might understand you. She looked at him carefully. And if they do not, then you learn who deserves your time. Days passed as they traveled to their next destination. During quiet moments on the ship, Lyra joined the crew more often. She learned human humor, which relied heavily on shared experiences and gentle teasing. She found herself laughing more than she expected, yet not everyone welcomed change. News reached them that a political faction within the sector opposed growing human influence. They believed humans disrupted established hierarchies by encouraging emotional connections across species. Lyra's involvement with Elias attracted attention. One message accused her of abandoning her cultural identity. The words unsettled her deeply. I am becoming something unfamiliar, she admitted to Elias. Change doesn't erase who you are, he said gently. It adds to it. But what if my people reject me? he considered carefully before answering. Then they are choosing fear over understanding, and that is their loss. She absorbed his words silently. As the ship moved deeper into contested territory, Lyra felt both stronger and more vulnerable than ever before. She was no longer invisible. People noticed her, listened to her, and sometimes challenged her. Yet for the first time, she did not wish to disappear. Standing at the observation window one evening, she watched distant stars passing by. The reflections on her skin shifted into soft patterns of quiet determination. Elias joined her without speaking. After a while, she said softly, "You changed how I see myself." He shook his head. "No, I just looked long enough for you to see yourself." She turned toward him, eyes shining with something new, not uncertainty, but growing confidence. Outside, the stars moved endlessly forward, carrying them toward challenges neither fully understood yet. And Lyra realized that the galaxy felt different now, not because it had changed, but because she had begun to step into it without hiding. The horizon wake traveled through a quiet stretch of space, moving toward the largest diplomatic gathering in the outer sector. The upcoming summit had been planned for months. Representatives from many species would attend to discuss cooperation agreements, trade access, and growing concerns about political divisions spreading across the region. Lyra stood near the observation window as stars drifted past. Her reflection shimmered faintly against the glass, colors shifting slowly across her skin. She had stopped covering her face completely now. The layered fabric remained draped over her shoulders out of habit, but she no longer used it to hide. That alone felt like a great change. Elias watched her from across the room, noticing how she carried herself differently. When he first met her, she avoided attention. Now she met glances directly, even if uncertainty still lived beneath her calm expression. "You're thinking too loudly again," he said gently as he approached. She tilted her head slightly. "Humans can hear thoughts now. Only when someone stares at the stars for too long without blinking." A faint glow of amusement moved across her skin. "I was considering the summit," she admitted. "Many important voices will be there, many opinions, and many chances for misunderstandings," he added. "That is what concerns me." He leaned beside her, looking out at the endless space. "You helped resolve conflicts before. This is just a larger version." She hesitated. "A larger audience means greater risk." Elias nodded. "That's true, but it also means greater opportunity." She absorbed his words silently. The summit station appeared 2 days later, orbiting a massive gas giant whose swirling clouds reflected shades of gold and violet. The station itself was enormous, made of layered rings filled with meeting halls, living quarters, and cultural spaces designed to accommodate dozens of species comfortably. As the horizon wake docked, Lyra felt tension rising within her. Memories of past rejection lingered, whispering doubts. Yet she stepped forward beside Elias without retreating. The arrival hall buzzed with activity. Representatives moved in organized groups, some wearing ceremonial clothing, others dressed in practical uniforms. Conversations flowed through multiple languages at once. Several delegates glanced at Lyra, curiosity evident. A few expressions revealed discomfort, but she held her posture steady. Humans from nearby colonies greeted Elias warmly. One nodded respectfully toward Lyra. "We've heard about your work at Haven's Reach," he said. "You prevented a serious conflict." Lyra blinked, surprised. "You have heard of that? Word travels fast when something good happens." She felt warmth spread across her skin, colors brightening slightly. The first day of the summit focused on general discussions. Elias participated in several panels, advocating for cooperation through understanding rather than strict control. Lyra attended quietly at first, listening to the different perspectives. Some species valued emotional connection, others viewed it as weakness. During a break between sessions, a group of delegates approached them. Their leader spoke with polite but distant tone. "You are the Illyrian working closely with human mediation teams," he said. "Yes," Lyra replied calmly. "We question whether human influence encourages instability. Emotional decision-making can disrupt established systems." Lyra felt tension rise but remained composed. "Understanding emotion does not remove logic," she said gently. "It adds context." The delegate studied her carefully. "Perhaps, yet many find your species' appearance difficult to interpret." The familiar sting returned. Before Elias could respond, Lyra spoke first. "Many once said the same about humans," she said softly. The delegate paused, considering her words. "We will observe," he said finally before leaving. Afterward, Elias looked at her with quiet pride. "You handled that well?" "I did not retreat," she said, almost surprised by her own actions. "No," he agreed, "you didn't." The following day brought the main debate session, a gathering where disagreements often reached their highest intensity. Representatives argued over trade regulations and cultural integration policies. Tension built quickly. At one point, a faction opposing human influence began presenting arguments that emotional bonds between species blurred necessary boundaries. They suggested that individuals like Lyra represented cultural dilution. The room grew tense. Lyra felt dozens of eyes turned toward her. For a moment, old instincts urged her to step back into silence. She could feel the familiar weight pressing against her, the memory of being unseen, unheard. Then she remembered the child at Haven's Reach who had called her skin beautiful like stars. She remembered Elias looking at her without hesitation. Slowly, she stood. "I request permission to speak," she said. The moderator nodded cautiously. Lyra stepped into the center of the chamber. Soft light illuminated her, highlighting the shifting patterns across her skin. "I understand concern about change," she began quietly. "My own people fear change deeply. We hide to protect ourselves. We avoid attention to avoid pain." The room remained silent. "But hiding does not prevent misunderstanding," she continued. "It allows fear to grow." She described how many species misinterpreted Illyrian expressions because they never took time to learn their meaning. She spoke about how humans approached difference with curiosity rather than avoidance. "When I met Commander Elias," she said, "I warned him not to look at me. I believed my appearance would create rejection." Her voice trembled slightly but grew stronger. "He did look, not with judgment, with interest." A ripple of murmurs spread through the audience. "My species communicates emotion through light. Many saw this as strange. Humans saw it as honest." As she spoke, her skin shifted through gentle waves of color, expressing emotion openly. The display captivated many who had never observed it closely before. "Beauty is not a single form," she continued. "Understanding begins when we allow ourselves to see beyond expectation." One delegate raised a question. "Are you suggesting all differences should be accepted without caution?" "No," Lyra replied calmly. "I suggest we learn before deciding." The simplicity of her words carried unexpected weight. She spoke about the conflicts she helped resolve, showing how misunderstanding often began with fear of unfamiliar expression. By the time she finished, the chamber remained silent for several seconds. Then one representative began to clap slowly. Others followed. Elias watched quietly, pride evident in his expression. After the session, several delegates approached her with genuine curiosity, asking questions about Illyrian culture. For the first time, she answered without feeling like an outsider defending herself. She felt like a teacher sharing knowledge. Later that evening, she and Elias stood alone on an external observation platform. The gas giant below filled the sky with swirling color. "I spoke without hiding," she said softly. "Yes," he replied, "I was afraid." "That never disappears completely," he said. "Courage means moving forward anyway." She turned toward him. "You stayed silent while I spoke. It was your moment." She studied him carefully. "Humans often step forward. Why did you step back?" "Because sometimes the strongest support is giving someone space to be seen." Her skin glowed warmly at his words. Over the next days, discussions shifted noticeably. Delegates began proposing new cultural exchange programs instead of stricter separation policies. While disagreements remained, the tone softened. Lyra found herself included in more conversations. She realized that people were no longer avoiding her gaze. On the final day of the summit, a closing ceremony gathered everyone together. Representatives shared reflections on what they had learned. When Lyra's turn came unexpectedly, she hesitated only briefly. "I once believed I needed to become invisible to survive," she said quietly. "Now I understand that invisibility prevents connection." She glanced toward Elias briefly before continuing. "Humanity's strength is not that they change others into themselves. It is that they encourage others to become more fully who they already are." The audience listened closely. "I am still Illyrian. I have not changed my nature, but I have changed how I see myself." After the ceremony, as they prepared to leave the station, Lyra walked beside Elias through the crowded corridor without lowering her head. You remember what I told you when we first met? She asked. You said you weren't beautiful like human women. Yes, she said softly, and now, she paused, searching for the right words. Now I understand beauty is not comparison, it is recognition. Elias smiled gently. They boarded the Horizon Wake together, the stars waiting beyond. As the ship departed, Lyra stood at the observation window again. The galaxy felt vast and unpredictable, but no longer lonely. She had not changed into someone else. She had simply allowed herself to be seen. And in that moment, surrounded by endless stars, she realized that humanity's greatest gift was not technology or strength, but the ability to look at someone who felt invisible and say, without hesitation, "I see you."